Hello, this is Gerald Cannon standing in for Aisa Rodriguez, and this is InformNation. And understanding that information is not knowledge unless it is shared. Today I'll be hosting Dr. Shepard, Joe Shepard, and he's going to be sharing with us. He's a Queens native, and he'll be sharing with us his perspective of the racism of human spirit and the balance of self-discovery and economic empowerment. He'll be sharing that with us live today at InformNation. Hello, Dr. Shepard. How are you doing today? And thank you for being a part of the show.
I'm very excited to be here. I am doing very, very well. How are you guys?
We're doing wonderful here in the great city of New York in this heat, enjoying the summer. Again, I thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to share your perspective on things as we address the theme of the pursuit of happiness and not chasing the dollar, but chasing the dream. So before we go any further, why don't you share with our audience the things, some of your accomplishments? I know you're a great author and you have quite a few books out there. Give us some perspective on those.
I do appreciate that. Most importantly, I am a fan of all things that help to accelerate our growth, both mentally, emotionally, which ties into spiritually. And so there was information when I was coming up that wasn't available to me. And so I had tons and tons of questions. So I began to document a lot of those answers. And so it kind of evolved into what we have been able to celebrate today. And so in my first work, Eye to Eye, This Education of the Storm, this deals a lot with personal discovery, knowledge of self, understanding things to be more than what they appear to be initially as I was growing. And then its prequel, Journey to this Throne, where it was like how to apply that information. Now that you have the knowledge, what is the wisdom of execution?
Right.
And so that just deals with a lot of emotional intelligence and understanding our triggers and how to move and how those things tie into nutrition and things like that. While I was writing that, I was also doing transformational leadership, where I made a paid homage to my family and the legacy of the harvest that I've come from. Both of my parents are Bronx, New York natives, and I grew up in Queens. And so I just wanted to kind of let them know, you know, in some ways how well of a job they did, and not so much that I didn't make any mistakes, but just in that understanding that no matter what turns I took, it was their stance of leadership, you know, that came from generations before me that allowed us to make difference in the community today. So those are just a few of those works, and I'm sure we'll get into some other things a little bit later in our discussion.
Right. So going into that, I remember speaking to you briefly, and you also have a collaborative work that is being presented or have not been presented already, correct?
Just this last weekend, we are finished publishing now, and that book is called I Call Dibs, and I did that with the wonderful Miss Monique Shields.
Awesome.
And it was a beautiful experience. I call dibs. You know, growing up, you know, you would want to ride in the front seat of a car. If you grew up with siblings or, you know, you had classmates, you wanted to do something, you'd call dibs on who was going to be the one that got to, you know, pass out the paper or grab the candy or ride in the front seat or if you had next or whatever the case was. And so we realized that we can call dibs on the reality that we want in life. And so there were things that were passing by, and it was like, not so fast. I'm calling dibs on this next thing that I want. I'm calling dibs on forgiveness. I'm calling dibs on my happiness. I'm calling dibs on the wealth that it's going to take to finance my dream. I'm calling dibs on my family. I'm calling dibs on the reality that I deserve. And it, you know, gives the step process for those positive affirmation scripts. And so we're very, very happy to be able to present that. That'll be in public market in about 2 weeks, as we're going to be presenting it on a larger scale for our National Book Club audience in October when we release our publishing studio and printing house.
Well, Dr. Shepard, I like to call dibs on the very first copy that comes off that press with your autograph and Miss Monique's autograph on that to me. Please, I'm calling dibs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We would have it no other way.
You know, going forward, I know you want to give thanks to your mother and your father, your parents, on how you pursued things. But is there any inside inspiration that you can attribute your success to?
Absolutely. I always give credit to my parents, my grandparents, my ancestors, for things that they taught me directly and indirectly. And the indirect messages, those gaps that we had to learn to fill in ourselves, that was our journey.
Right.
And so I always say my father taught me everything. There was just some things he never said.
Wow.
But
that is very profound.
Yeah. And so no matter what it is that I've come to understand, it's because of my mother and my father. And I'm very grateful for those lessons. Personally, I think one of the biggest things that kind of moved away from, those parental lessons was when I began to build a family of my own.
Right, right.
And so when I began to step into the parental shoes, and so things were for a different reason. Once you start bringing other life into this world, then it's not so much about you anymore. It's about what they deserve.
Right, right.
And I had to hurry up and get me all the way together really quickly.
Yes.
And it was a daily process, and it still is a daily process, but it's not just for me. So it kind of accelerates the margins.
So the inspiration came more as when you came into that position of things?
Absolutely. I was very, very comfortable moving at my own pace, understanding things the way I understood them. Life was comfortable. There wasn't a lot of pressure. I was having a lot of fun. And then I had a son. And at the time, his mother and I weren't in the position to be parents.
Right.
We were in the position to split expenses. However, to be able to offer a life to a child wasn't what I had in my pocket. And not to say that it was just monetary, but it just wasn't what I had on me.
I see.
And so, those experiences as I was becoming a father, even though, my son was already born and then we had other children.
Right.
But still becoming and evolving into the parent that I always wanted to be able to give my children, what they deserve beyond trying to make up for what I lacked. That kind of grounded me tremendously. I thank my children almost as much as I thank my parents, because there's so many things that I didn't do because as a father, I just didn't be out there doing different things. So
that put in what I'm getting is that when put in that exact position of being a parent, you started to see it from that perspective and understand it better.
Well, yes, because as a parent, you think you know it all just when you become an adult, but then as a parent, I realized I had nothing to teach. And so after you get past, this is how you walk, this is how you ride your bike, this is how you shoot a free throw, there wasn't any depth. And I didn't want my children to have to search for answers the way I had to search for answers. And so I wanted to make sure that there was a curriculum in place. I wanted to make sure that there was a structure in place. And so I began writing because I didn't want them to have to go far. I wanted when questions came, they could go right here. Right. And they knew that there was something that was written for them. We're very grateful that the rest of the world has kind of picked up on it, on some of that material. But initially, it was just to make sure that my sons had a blueprint.
So at what point, because now that brings me to my next question, at what point did you realize it was a passion?
Well, before it became a passion for me, I realized it was a therapy.
Oh, now that's good stuff. That's good.
Yeah, I was. It's like I knew things, but then to legitimize some of the theories, I had to study and I had to gain credentials so that it wouldn't just be do this because Dad said. Because I think we grew up in a community where it's we just do as others do, and in those contexts, we make the same mistakes.
Correct.
And so it's like it's not just because Dad said this, because I think we would run into the same problem. But Dad studied, Dad labored, their credentials, Dad's recognized by different boards and different committees that stand behind these findings, and he did that for you. I think that was a much better position to speak from. And it offered me the solace of, doing all that I possibly could as a parent. And that was my goal, to make sure that I was doing everything that I could at any possible moment.
So what I'm gleaning from is that once you figured out how to, fix us, we were able to go out and share forth. And when we fixed it and got repaired, we were able to share forth what helped us. Am I correct?
That's absolutely correct. I think a lot of times we look at global trauma and we look at national epidemics, and then we start to look at state and local politics, and then what happens in the community and what happens around the corner. But all of this is reflective of what happens in the home.
Right.
And so what happens in the home is based on the temperature that we bring into the home. So the global pandemic, the evolution of humanity, hinges on our consciousness. So,
I agree. I hear that it absolutely does hinge on our consciousness and how present we are in all of this. And then,
yes.
But we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back to this very intriguing conversation with Dr. Shepard. Again, I'm Gerald Cannon, standing in for Aitza Rodriguez on InformNation. We'll be right back.
Maria, so how's work?
It was fourth period biology. Our students just weren't getting how easily viruses spread. So Miss Bell and I had them role play a zombie virus outbreak. By the time they had all learned the lesson, all the living were dead. Hey, how's your job going?
That big sales meeting I planned? Next year, I might get to go.
Cool.
When I was in high school, I was physically at school, but my mind wasn't at school. I had problems at home, and that's hard when you feel like you're doing it alone. That's when I met our niece, my mom, as I'll call her. She started helping me a little bit, like, Nia, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but your future is more important. She's my strength. Just being a support for those hard days and those hard nights, not giving up on me. Thank you to my mama. I wouldn't have did this if it wasn't for her. Today is for my mama and everybody who had my back. It takes a village to help somebody get their diploma. Some people would think, well, maybe it's really not that big of a deal, but it really is. It changes your whole life.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. How could you not love him?
Welcome back to InformNation. I'm Gerald Cannon, standing in for Aitza Rodriguez. And again, our motto is, knowledge is not information unless it is shared. And we're here with Dr. Shepard as he shares his perspective on our theme, which is pursuit of happiness, and not pursuing the dollar, but pursuing the dream. Dr. Shepard, you were telling us how we need to be conscious in the position that we're in to be able to go forth and being able to help others. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I certainly appreciate this platform and InformNation. And just before we came back from our break, we were speaking to understanding that you have to be present. And it's our presence in the home that then translates to how we're reflected in the community, to how we're reflected in larger capacities on a state level, nationwide. And so you can never do enough in the home. And so as I saw different global pandemics and I wanted to make an impact on that level, I realized it was going to have to start with me. It was going to have to start with me in that mirror, figuring out how do I allow this to continue in my home, number one, because that's the only way it's able to continue, anywhere else. So making sure that we're trying to ensure that we safeguard and we had our own lines of defense. And I don't think that a lot of times we're taught to think this way. We just duck down and deal with it and go back out into it, and we bring it back home every day without even knowing.
Wow. So you go out. We go out every day, and I exactly understand what you're saying. We tend to go out and perform these tasks, and many times we're not even conscious in what we're doing. We just kind of just going with the flow of things. But from your perspective, what you're pointing out is that we are to take a more responsible, a more accountability to what we're doing, and also developing it from the foundation at the home.
That's exactly right. Growing up in a city like New York, it's very much mind your business, stay on track with whatever you have going on. Don't get involved with things that don't concern you. And this causes us to kind of have a tunnel view of where we're going, as we're on the train, as we're on the bus, as we're walking up and down the sidewalk, getting to our destination, and whatever else is happening around the corner, down the alley, it's really none of our business. And this is safe. However, it's not very, very conducive to any level of change, because what we're really saying in those moments is whatever's happening down the alley is acceptable. And so that's not going to change. And it's never a problem until it's someone we know that's down in the alley. Then, get out the pickets and, burn the witch at the stake. But we've allowed it. And I'm not saying that everyone should be a vigilante and start chasing everyone down the alley, and because, again,
correct.
We have to be self-aware at the same time. But maybe we should put some lights on the alley. Maybe the alley shouldn't be so dark. Maybe there are some preventive measures where we can speak up and say, hey, things go on that sidewalk, and we don't want things going on that sidewalk because our daughters, our queens, our mothers, our sisters walk down those pathways, and it's not cool. And brothers, listen, it's not okay to treat them like that as they're walking by. And my young son shouldn't feel a way that they don't want to walk through that particular section, because we're all brothers, so they should feel comforting, and it should be comfortable when you're walking in your community, not guarded and ready to defend yourself against your neighbor.
You really touched on something earlier in what you were sharing. How the society would want us to mind our own business, but in actuality, everything is our business, because everything that happens affects us some kind of way. Irregardless if it's miles away. If we watch it on the news, we give it some kind of response. So therefore, there is an effect. So we are more connected than society would like us to think, and we need to show our diligence in respect of our connections with society. What in that mindset, if the truth be that we are way more connected than we are divided, what is the way? How would we go about addressing that?
I think we're affected more than we're connected.
Okay.
To be connected would be to be responsible. And we're not showing responsibility to what's happening, but we are certainly affected. We can act like we're not affected. We can act like it doesn't bother us because we're trained to be desensitized to the horror that's going on. Every time we turn on the news, it's something we can just turn the channel away from. But it's an environment where it's a war zone.
Right.
And, everyone turns to their means of safety and security, whether it's love for security, whether it's, we want to make sure that we have arms to protect our families, whether we want to make sure that we have money to move to a different location where we feel safer, whether we turn to faith to feel more protected in different environments. We are certainly impacted more than we give the situation credit for. And if we were connected, there wouldn't be as much of a situation because we'd be more responsible to the situation. If dude down the hall is cooking up stuff, who knocks on his door and say, my man, listen, I know you're trying to do the best that you possibly can with the information that you have. However, that's not good for this building. That's really not good for this community. This community isn't going to be well with you doing what you're doing because that's only going to hurt us.
Right.
And I can't allow you to hurt us. Just man to man, or friend to friend, brother to brother, however it comes across, but not to, have a battle of swords. Because listen, I'm not here to intimidate you. The harm that's happening usually from people making decisions that they think are best at that time.
You mentioned making decisions at the best of that time, and it kind of then brings it right back to the connection that is us. There is a great deal of misunderstanding and fear that would have us to act as there is no accountability to our neighbor or for our neighbor, because we do very well think that we need to go down the hall and say, listen, bro, I know you're doing the very best that you can, but this is not going to help us. It's going to hurt us. So, what can we do to turn it around? We come from a society that wears emotions on their sleeve, and everyone feels that they're being victimized or being attacked. And with that, under that deception, if I may, under that deception, we act accordingly. But if the truth be told, that it is, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you, and that you need to do the very best that you can because it's only going to benefit you, not hurt you. I think that, that truth, if that truth is starting to be spoken about, that things will start to turn around and people will start to see the light, because right now everyone's just, trying to feel around in darkness. I
think this platform is part of the solution, and that's why I'm very excited to be on this call. You asked the question, what can we do? And the reason no one knocks on the door to say, to the brother, to the sister, I see what you're doing, and I know you're doing your best, it's not really because they're afraid of the backlash as much as they know they don't have something else to offer that brother or sister to do instead. Because if I had $1 million product, I wouldn't mind knocking on the door and say, hey, listen, chill. I see you. I see what you're doing. I know you're just trying to take care of your family the same way I'm trying to take care of my family. We live in the same building.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? We most of us who are in these buildings, in these homes, we've been here years. So, we've grown up, we've made our choices. And so I have something better for you. Okay? I have something. I have another solution. Mm-hmm. That's why we don't knock on the door, because we don't have a solution. And so, when it comes to what we're speaking of in reference to chasing the dream and not the dollar, when you grow up in poverty, money becomes one of your love languages.
Yes.
That's what the goal is. I grew up and I either want to get away or I want to have power, and money is going to get me power because I feel like I didn't have power, like I couldn't erect change. And so money becomes the drive.
That's profound. That is very, very profound.
Several years ago, Dr. Gary Chapman, who I reference in a lot of my material, introduced what we understand as the 5 love languages, or romantic love languages that I would suggest that they are. and we appreciate those things. And you can reference those things in my material as well as in his book, The 5 Love Languages. But in the community, in our community, love is expressed a little bit differently in that we are experiencing an economic depression.
When you say, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when you say our community, are you talking of the underserved?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm speaking to any other underserved market, whether it be post-industrial, whether it be in a minority, whether there is not a representation on a political level or a judicial structure. But when you're dealing anywhere where there's an economic depression, there's not a level playing field because the values are different. So on a level playing field, all things created equal, there's gifts and acts of service and words of affirmation and touch and quality time. However, if I'm poor, I don't really care about quality time. As a matter of fact, I don't have time for that. Right? So now, because I'm poor, or I've grown up here in poverty, all right, now wealth is my love language.
I see.
Right? So our goals are less to have a healthy relationship and more to, let me go get this bag.
Right. Get this money. The pursuit.
Right.
Exactly. So you come in and exactly what we're talking about, and our theme being the pursuit of happiness and not the pursuit of the dollar, not chasing the dollar, but chasing the dream. But it actually works out because the love language is money, then we end up inadvertently chasing the dollar and not the dream. Dr. Shepard?
That's right.
I really want to thank you for this time and you taking the time out to be with us. And look forward to having another discussion with you if you're ever available with InformNation with us. What do you say?
For InformNation, I'm available. I appreciate you and this platform. Thank you, Brother Cannon. Thank you very, very, very much for this platform and the opportunity to share with your audience.
Thank you, Doctor. This is Gerald Cannon for InformNation, where knowledge is not information unless it is shared. Thank you.
This is the story of a boy who didn't talk for a long time. The boy liked things to always be the same. Any changes would scare and upset him. The unknown was an unfriendly place. The boy was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where they couldn't get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. He wasn't trying to be mean, it just made him feel uncomfortable. Sometimes he would flap his arms again and again.
One day I found out I had something called autism. My family got me help. Slowly, I found my voice and learned all the ways I could live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.